And it says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, read the fine print. Read the fine print. Over the years, I have watched many artists lose so much because they signed contracts that they were not ready for. And as a matter of fact, it's not that they were not ready for it, but they had no idea of what the contract said. So they signed the dotted line, and they, as a result, they lost countless amounts of dollars because they were so zealous about what they thought they were gaining. But the truth be told, a few years in, they only found themselves to be flat broke, busted, and disgusted, and they lost their joy. And they thought they would be well off and living all great and wonderful, only to realize that they had to pay somebody back, which left them in a bad place. Have you ever gotten involved in something that you thought would be one way and ended up losing your joy over time? Well, how about that relationship that you was in that went sour? How about that job you took that you knew you shouldn't have took, but you said the money looked good at the time? So they ended up being crazy, and those things caused you to lose your joy. But listen, those contracts that are signed with ink are not much different than the ones that we have signed spiritually. For instance, the moment you started drinking and smoking, you signed the dotted line to play on Satan's team. The moment you started stealing, you signed the dotted line to play on Satan's team, man. The moment you started sleeping around, you signed the dotted line to sleep on Satan's team. Because you might not think so, but whenever we involve ourselves in doing something outside of the will of God, we have signed a contract to participate in Satan's activities. And what wasn't told to you, whenever you sign a contract, you must read the fine print. Look at your neighbor and say, read the fine print. Usually, contracts are built like this. You will receive X, Y, and Z, and that's in bold letters, but you must give up A, B, and C. Those are in the small letters. So my question to you is, what is the contract that you signed? Was it a contract to steal? Was it a contract to lie? Was it a contract to be promiscuous? Or was it a contract to gossip? See, I'm sure when you did whatever it was that you did not know that it would affect your life the way it did. Your contract probably looked like this. If you take $10 from your mom's pocketbook and put it back later, you'll be just fine. But if you tell your husband or your wife a little white lie to get yourself out of this mess that you're in, then that will be okay. But then 10 years later, you find yourself filled with stealing and cheating and lying and slandering and depression, misery, low self-esteem, envy, fear, worry, doubt, suicidal thoughts, claiming to be the victim, always about me. You're prideful, you're stuck up, you're prejudiced, feeling like beating somebody up, dealing with shame, abuse, guilt, envy, always looking over your shoulder, always believing that somebody's out to get you. Can't build friendships because you don't trust nobody. Can't build relationships because you're stuck in the past. You're always ready to let somebody have a piece of your mind because you signed a bad contract and you lost your joy. And you don't have to act like I'm not talking about you, but I already know I'm in the building because my spiritual GPS led me to your address and I parked right in front of your door. So look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, this word is for me. See, Satan never tells you that Satan never tells you your results of you signing. He just says sign. And so what looks like fun turns out to be your demise and is a detriment to your life. But if you want your joy back, I brought by a contract today that you can sign today. See, the contract was already signed, sealed, and delivered. It says that it was signed back on Calvary with the blood of Jesus. It was sealed when they put him in the grave and closed the tomb. And it was delivered when he got up 3 days later. And years later, the ink of the blood is still powerful. Years later, the ink of the blood is still cleansing. And years later, the ink of the blood still breaks us free from the bondage of stealing and cheating and lying and slandering, depression and misery and low self-esteem and envy and fear and worry and doubt, suicidal thoughts, drug addiction, promiscuity, gossip, consulting mediums, alcoholism, scams and shams. This is a good contract that I brought to you today. But listen, the fine print says this: I will never leave you nor forsake you. The fine print says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans to give you hope in the future. The fine print says, commit your ways to me and your plans will be established. The fine print says, trust in the Lord and lean not to your own understanding. And he will direct your path so that you will end up experiencing
experiencing love, so that you end up experiencing joy, so that you end up experiencing peace and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. Is there anybody willing to change their contract tonight? You can praise him like you're willing to. Are you willing? If there's anybody in here that is willing to experience the joy that God has for them, then you need to be screaming out to the Lord, change my contract. Don't leave here another day bound under a contract that will ultimately destroy you. But sign on the dotted line with your praise this evening. Sign on the dotted line with your worship this evening. Raise your hand and say, I'm willing to change my contract. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, next time, read the fine print. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Somebody ought to give God some praise. Oh, I said somebody ought to give God some praise. Somebody ought to give God praise.